The year was 518 BC, and Darius I, the now undisputed great king of Persia, was in charge of an empire that stretched from Libya in northern Africa to the mountains of Tajikistan and parts of the Indus River on the other. It was the greatest empire that the world up until then had ever seen, but barely 4 years earlier, it had nearly all collapsed. What became known as the Achaemenid Persian Empire was founded in 550 BC by Cyrus II of Persia. Today, he's better known as Cyrus the Great, but in the 550s BC, Cyrus II was the ruler of the small kingdom of Persia that was at the time a vassal of the Median Empire and its king, Astyages. A conflict broke out between the two, and eventually Cyrus overthrew Astyages and went on to build an empire that stretched from the Aegean Sea on one end to the edges of the Hindu Kush Mountains on the other. His son and successor, Cambyses II, would add Egypt and Libya to the realm. In 522 BC, while Cambyses was in Egypt, a usurper claiming to be Bardia, the brother of Cambyses and the younger son of Cyrus, seized the throne of the Persian Empire for himself. The only account of what happened next comes from the man who would eventually become Darius I of Persia. At the time, he was a high-ranking military officer in the army of Cambyses II. Several years later, after becoming the new ruler of the Persian Empire, Darius would tell the story of how he became king in an inscription written high atop a cliff at the site today known as Behistun in western Iran. In it, he claims that the man who seized the throne from Cambyses was not actually Bardia, but a priest who only resembled him. As for the real Bardia, Darius stated that Cambyses II had killed his brother in order to prevent a palace coup in his absence, a fact that, at least according to Darius, was kept a secret and only known to a few individuals within the royal court. Upon hearing the news, Cambyses immediately left to deal with the usurper, but died on his way to Persia, which according to the ancient historians, Herodotus and Ctesias, was from a self-inflicted stab wound to the thigh. Shortly afterward, Darius and his allies marched against the impostor, eventually cornering and killing him in Media. With the Persian throne now vacant and no more sons of Cyrus alive, Darius, who claimed that he was a distant relative of Cambyses and therefore a legitimate heir to the throne, crowned himself as the new ruler of the Achaemenid Persian Empire. But not everyone recognized him as their legitimate ruler, and almost immediately, insurrections broke out in several provinces, led by men who declared themselves to be the rightful kings of their respective countries. Darius goes on to tell us in the Behistun inscription that he defeated all of these men and their supporters within a year. Modern scholars debate Darius' story, with many, if not most, being extremely skeptical of his account of just what happened after the death of Cambyses. However, the narrative from the Behistun inscription, which Herodotus also more or less retells in his work, The Histories, is all that we have with regard to what happened within the Persian Empire in 522 BC. What is not disputed is that Darius was now the most powerful man on earth, and one that history would go on to remember as Darius the Great. As stability returned and new territories were added to the realm, Darius also embellished the other capitals of the empire, including Susa, where he built a new palace, and Pasargadae, the city founded by Cyrus the Great. For Darius, though, such cities didn't represent the greatness and cosmopolitanism of the Achaemenid Empire, and so perhaps in 518 or 517 BC, he ordered the construction of a new city, Parsa, which the Greeks would later call Persepolis, or City of the Persians. It's from this that we get the name Persepolis. The site today is also known in Iran as Takht-i Jamshid. Parsa, or Persepolis, was built to replace the former capital of Pasargadae as the new royal seat and administrative hub of the empire. However, it soon became more of a ceremonial center where coronations, royal burials, and major ceremonies were held, including the New Year festival, where representatives from all of the empire's many provinces brought tribute and gifts for the great king of Persia. The foundations of the new city were laid at the base of a small mountain that today is known as Ku-i-Rahmat, but in ancient times may have been called Ku-i-Mer, meaning the Mountain of Mitra. Persepolis was built on top of a large artificial platform that covered an area of about 135,000 square meters, upon which rested royal palaces, ceremonial halls, the main treasury, fortification walls, and several guard towers. Unlike the cities of Susa and Babylon, Persepolis was a completely new construction, as Darius tells us in one of the city's earliest inscriptions on the southern terrace wall. Thus says Darius the king, "On this terrace, on which the palace has been built, on a place where no palace had been built before, by the grace of Ahura Mazda, I built a palace. And Ahura Mazda wanted that this palace be built, and I built it. Therefore, it was made strong and excellent, and exactly as I had ordered it to be. May Ahura Mazda, with the other divine beings, protect me, this palace, and what has been built on this terrace." Written in Elamite, one of the 3 languages used for inscriptions at Persepolis, this text dates to the earliest phase of the city's construction, during which the terrace, the Apadana, the Tachara, and the Treasury were started. One of the most striking parts of Persepolis, even today, is the main entrance stairway built by Darius' son and successor, Xerxes I. It probably wasn't the original entrance, which may have been at the northern edge of the terrace, but it was by far the most impressive. It consisted of 2 rows of double reversed staircases, with each flight containing 111 steps, about 7 meters long, 40 centimeters in width, and 10 centimeters in height. These led up to the Gate of All Nations, which was also built by Xerxes. The Gate of All Nations was basically a 4-columned hall that dignitaries and representatives passed through on their way to the other parts of Persepolis. At the front were once 2 great stone bulls, which, including the platform they rested upon, were about 7 meters in height. Of the 4 original columns, 3 still stand today. The walls of the gate were once made up of glazed mud brick, and within them were black marble benches where those waiting to be escorted inside could sit and rest. The structure once had 3 stone doorways, one of them being the main entrance, another which opened to what scholars have dubbed Army Street because it had rooms where soldiers were stationed, and the third to the right as one walked in, which led to the courtyard of the Apadana, Persepolis' great audience hall. Of all of the city's buildings, the Apadana was the largest and probably most impressive during its day. The Apadana's gigantic main hall, which could fit up to 10,000 people, consisted of 36 columns and 3 porticos of 12 columns each on its northern, western, and eastern sides, thus 72 columns in all. Today, only 14 of them are still standing, one of these actually being reassembled and restored in the 1970s. Though time has taken its toll, each column was nearly 20 meters high and had double bull-headed capitals at their summit, the exception being the columns on the eastern portico, whose capitals featured double-headed lions. They all once held up the Apadana's roof, which was the size of a football field. Access to the Apadana was through 2 double-reversed staircases on its northern and eastern sides. While the architecture is magnificent, In my opinion, the most interesting aspect of the Apadana are the reliefs found there along its walls and staircases, especially those of the various delegations bearing gifts from all parts of the empire. Among the peoples depicted are Babylonians, Lydians, Assyrians, Bactrians, Indians, Armenians, Egyptians, Cushites, Arabs, and several other groups, 23 in total, though later reliefs would expand this number to include the new territories and their citizens that became part of the empire in the years that followed. The late, great professor of Iranian and Central Asian Studies at Harvard University, Richard Fry, described what he believed these scenes actually represented. To this remarkable center of a world empire, there came on New Year's Day, the vernal equinox, on the 21st of March, many peoples, representatives of many satrapies or governorships, which Darius had established in the empire. From the Ionian Greeks to the Egyptians, from the Babylonians to the Indians, they brought all sorts of gifts. Each delegation led by a Persian or Median noble was presented to the king with an explanation of what they had brought, and then the festivities began, celebrating the New Year's Day. These representations may also help to date the Apadana, or at least when certain parts of the complex were constructed. This is because it's known that Darius campaigned and subjugated Scythians near the Black Sea, as well as Thracians, probably around 513 or 512 BC. However, these groups are not depicted or mentioned on the Apadana's relief panels, while they are shown on the reliefs that cover the facade of Darius's tomb at nearby Nakshi Rustam. They're also not mentioned in the Apadana foundation tablets that were uncovered from stone boxes at the corners of its base platform. This means that the construction of the Apadana must have started sometime before 513 BC. In all, the Apadana took 30 years to complete. Behind the Apadana are the ruins of the private palace of Darius I, called the Tachara. Scholars believe that this is the oldest building in Persepolis. Though it's one of the smaller palaces, it's also one of the more impressive and better preserved. Unfortunately, his son and successor, Xerxes I, didn't have the same luck, and his private palace seems to have suffered much more when Alexander of Macedon set fire to Persepolis in 330 BC. One of the other great buildings commissioned by Xerxes was the Hall of 100 Columns. Though a bit smaller than the Apadana, it could also accommodate thousands of people. It may have been used for Xerxes and his son, Artaxerxes I, as their primary audience hall, but later on, as the nearby Treasury complex began to overflow, parts of it were used for storage. Nearby to the south was the palace where the queens and royal women lived, which archaeologists have dubbed the harem of Xerxes. And finally, there's the royal treasury, which along with Darius's palace and the Apadana, is one of the oldest buildings in Persepolis. The original layout was 120 by 60 meters, but perhaps due to all of the new wealth that the empire was obtaining, several new rooms were added, one of which had 99 columns and another 100. These were much smaller than the ones at the Apadana and Xerxes' 100-columned hall, but they still would have left whoever entered these rooms in awe, as would have the incredible amounts of gold and silver housed within them. But perhaps the greatest treasure found within Persepolis was not any object made of any precious metal or gems, but clay, specifically clay tablets concerning the expenditures and wages paid from the treasury to palace officials and laborers. The largest cache contains up to 25 to 30,000 tablets that are today known as the Persepolis Fortification tablets, while another, smaller group called the Persepolis Treasury tablets has the scattered remains of perhaps a few hundred documents. While many have yet to be translated, it's clear that the overwhelming majority of them were written in Elamite, since many, if not most of the administrators who worked in the treasury were from Elam. However, there are also a scattering of documents written in Aramaic, Old Persian, Greek, Akkadian, and even Phrygian. An example of one of them reads like this. The royal treasurer, Baradakama, says, to Shaka, the treasurer, 3 karsha and 2.5 shekels of silver. Give to Harad Kama, an Egyptian carpenter, who is chief of 100. His 100 men are earning wages at Parsa, and for them, Vahauka is responsible. Their wages give an equivalent of money in the following way. 1 sheep for 3 shekels. 1 jug of wine for 1 shekel. Each worker is to be paid for 5 months of the 32nd year of the reign of Darius, receiving 6.5 shekels per month. Hipperuka, the scribe, wrote this tablet and received a receipt for it from Marduka. 2 Achaemenid kings, Artaxerxes II and Artaxerxes III, were laid to rest in the mountain just next to Persepolis. In 330 BC, Alexander of Macedon, who most today know as Alexander the Great, arrived at the city of Persepolis after defeating the Achaemenid king, Darius III, in the 2 great battles of Issus and Gaugamela. Though he and his men faced a bit of resistance from the brave governor of the province of Parsa, the latter was eventually defeated. Realizing that it would be futile to resist, the Persian officials left in charge of Persepolis surrendered the city to Alexander on the hope that, like Babylon, Susa, and many of the other cities he'd conquered, the Macedonian king might also spare their city. Ancient historians claim that the Macedonians and Greeks who walked up Persepolis' main entrance stairway and through Xerxes' Gate of All Nations were mesmerized by the sheer beauty and wealth of the city. Nothing like it had existed in their homeland, nor did any other city that they'd encountered, save perhaps for Babylon, compare to it. Alexander and his troops stayed in Persepolis from January to early May of 330 BC, during which time they plundered the city and organized thousands of pack animals, according to one account, at least 10,000, to unload Persepolis of its treasures, which are said to have amounted to 120,000 talents of gold and silver. After doing this, Alexander committed one of his most infamous acts. There are differing accounts of what exactly happened, but in the end, the Macedonian conqueror and his men are said to have set fire to one of the palaces of Persepolis, which then spread to other parts of the terrace, and eventually the entire city. The outcome of this was the total destruction of the great city founded by Darius the Great, and improved upon by his successors. Based on the sources that we have regarding the incident, there are differing opinions as to why Alexander set Persepolis on fire. The historians Quintus Curtius Rufus, Diodorus Siculus, and Plutarch write that it was a mistake that had occurred when an Athenian courtesan named Thais convinced a drunken Alexander to burn the city as an act of revenge for Xerxes' burning of Athens 150 years prior. Upon sobering up, Alexander is said to have regretted the act. However, the historian Arrian, in his Anabasis of Alexander, writes that it had been a deliberate act. He tells us, "And he set fire to the Persian royal palace. Parmenion had been urging him to preserve it. Points included in his advice were that there was no virtue in destroying what was now his own property, and that the people of Asia would be less inclined to accept him if they thought that even he had no plan to take the government of their country under his control, but was simply there for a tour of conquest." Alexander said that he wanted to punish the Persians for their destruction of Athens and burning of the temples when they invaded Greece, and to exact retribution for all the other harm they had inflicted on the Greeks. I myself share the view that there was no sense in this action of Alexander's, and it could hardly constitute punishment of the Persians in a distant past. Though the city was never rebuilt, it was not completely abandoned. In fact, parts of it may have still been occupied for a few decades after this catastrophic event, especially the sectors at the foot of the terrace where the common people who supported the city lived and worked. But with time, and their real purpose of living there now gone, the inhabitants of Persepolis moved to newer and more lucrative areas that were popping up during the reign of the Seleucid kings that succeeded Alexander in the Persian heartland. The memory of Persepolis' glory was still present up until at least the reigns of the Sasanian kings. There's a Pahlavi language, or Middle Persian inscription at Persepolis, dating to 311 AD, in which the Sasanian king, Shapur II, speaks of his visit to the site. It reads, "In the month of Spendarmad, in the second year of the Mazda-worshipping lord, Shapur, king of kings of Iran and non-Iran, went on this road through Istakar to Cistern, and for piety he came here. He ate food in this place. Accompanying him was Waram, son of Nab-Hormuzd, the counselor of Cistern, and Narse, the priest of Warazan, and Den, son of Ruh-Miran from Zarang, the governor, and Narse the scribe, and other Persian and Sistani nobles and messengers from all provinces and lords. They made a great celebration. His father and ancestors were praised, and he also praised those who built this place. May God remember them." With time and each succeeding generation, the history of Persepolis and its significance gradually became lost. It also didn't help that by Sasanian times and into the early Islamic period, no one could read the cuneiform inscriptions at Persepolis or other Achaemenid sites. Even the name of the place was forgotten, and by medieval times was called Takht-i-Jamshid, meaning Throne of Jamshid, after the legendary king from Ferdowsi's great Persian epic, the Shahnameh. By the 14th and 15th centuries, a few Europeans had visited the site, but they were unable to identify it. However, in 1618, Spain's ambassador to the Safavid court in Iran, Garcia de Silva Figueroa, made the connection that the site was the city of Persepolis that had been mentioned numerous times in classical texts. 3 years later, in 1621, the Italian traveler Pietro delle Valle visited Persepolis and made the same claim. In 1704, the Dutch artist Cornelius de Bruin visited Persepolis and created several sketches of what he saw, which increased European interest in the site even more. By the 18 and early 1900s, this interest had grown immensely amongst both Europeans and Iranians, the latter of whom now recognized Persepolis as a place of great importance in the long history of their country. Finally, in the 1930s, a team of archaeologists from the University of Chicago began serious excavations of the site and unveiled more of the story of the city and the great kings who once sat on its throne. Excavations continued during the following decades, and inscriptions and texts, such as the Persepolis Fortification tablets, were translated, so that today we have a pretty good idea of the history and function of this extremely historically significant place. And now, let's take a walk through Persepolis, the most magnificent city of the Achaemenid Persian Empire.
یه گذشت روزش اون روزی که ایجور گفت اونگاه دید گرا مثل سیاره گرا رشته بود فرض فهمید چقدر کیه خودش فهمید
انا نمی‌شد کنسرتش
ببینید گفتم من روزی که اومدم ولی گفت جلوشون
1800
جلوشون نمیدم
نه مقارن نکن همینجا بایسته برای چی رفتی باید؟ همینجا بایسته بینم خودی خوب گفتی اون روز هم خدای من حرف زدمه گفتم چه خانه گرفتید خودش دروازه ملل پیش کرد
خدا قسم من اگر شما باشید بگید که باز از پایین به بالا از دوستش کم یعنی سطوری که 16 مثلا از اون چالی تا اون چالی 3 سانتیمتر یعنی بگیم که هر سانتیمتر باید چالی میلیمتر کم کنید این تناسب به دست میاد آیه باساری نه
What? تختی به کجا؟
سنت خیلی بالا
هر قسمت مال چیزی تحت پیدا
jouer comme ça, et sinon je peux pas. C'est cuit.
آثار شکوهمند تخت جمشید بر اثر گذشت زمان فرسوده و آسیب‌پذیر میباشد. از شما بازدید کنندگان محترم خواهش می‌کنیم از هر گونه جهت هر حرکت‌هایی که به وسیله تناب، گوله‌بندی و شیشه محافظت شده بود نفرمایید.
The site is just so massive.
شما اینجا رسیدیم به نقوشی که در دیواره کاخ‌ها وجود داره و در مورد جشن به تصویر کشیده شده. در ردیف شاهد رو می‌بینید که ارباب پادشاه و ولیعهد رو میارن. چند اسب کمین جلو بعد از اسب شما باید پادشاه می‌بینید که ادوار دارن برسانی که بهتر آب مایی
آن کسی هوا خونه نکنه نمیده
اگر عمر باقی بود میبرم تو جیلوی خودمون با خدا فعلا حالا کفشو موزاییک کنیم یا از شنا
1300 سال یکم یه هست
بابا راحت
از قسمت‌هایی که به بچگی شناس روز
مشخصا
با توپ
طوق دور گردنش، گوشوارش، دستبندش،
بزرگترم نشونش میداده.
آره نه حالا اینجا به خاطر اون آقایون گوشواره می‌پوشن. یه چیز نگاه کنید، گفتیم که اینجا توی
What is it?
Yes.
What was the time? Bactrian camel. This guy is from India. He's carrying gold dust. If I remember correctly. Bactrians with the Bactrian camel. These are supposed to be Saka, Scythians.
And you can see the expression on the
مخصوص نگهداری نوشیدنی‌های مثل شراب
چارچوب در نظر بگیرید از همه جا هستن. حالا ذهنتون رو باز کنید. این چه قومیه؟ آفریقایی. دقیقاً اینجور پیچ داره. اینا حبشی هست. آره دقیقاً همینجوری هست. اون گوشای کوچولو، سرای صورتای گه. بعد بچه حبشی چی میارم؟
Fortunately, it's a little dark here.
چرا اینجا همه چی گرونه؟
شناخت افراد بسیار مشکل میشه. بعد میرن یه ناراحتی براشون درست میشه. ولی نه یه آره شناختتون خیلی مهمه. اینکه اون افرادی که همراهشون دارید چجور آدمایی باشن. خیلی آدم‌ها هتل یا
بیاموزه قبلش گفتم
خودش میاد در این کاخ مردم رو میبینه مهمانهاشو میبینه نقشش کرده
شفا بخواهیم شفا بده
ببخشید.
من با این تنظیم میشم. ماما ببین روبرو این بگیرتش. ببینی؟ روبرو این زور 15 بگیر.
گرفتم. When they have light shows. Looks like we got the best seat in the house. Beautiful, and it's just, I just can't imagine what this place must have been like in its prime. Absolutely stunning. If only how many columns are left of the great audience hall. 1, 2, 3, 4. Count about 11. Huh? Just all the history that must have been witnessed here through this gate. The people of how many different nations marched through, soldiers marching through, kings marching through. Audience hall, everything, just amazing. And then finally it all ended when Alexander came and spent about 3 months here unloading the treasury. And then the place was set to fire. There are different accounts of it, which we'll go into we've talked about it in other episodes. Whether it was done on purpose or it was an accident. But regardless, the world lost such an amazing place. Absolutely beautiful. Alright, let's go explore some more. I'm gonna stop to take a few photos. Alright, let's continue. Passageway. I think we know what's up there, but shall we go? Yeah, let's do it. You probably saw glimpses of this if you were earlier, but now we'll walk up to it. It'll be a surprise though. In the meantime, that's where we're headed. But let's admire the view from here. Look at that. Let's proceed. Back seat. Wow. Almost there. continue. So in case you're wondering what this is the final resting place of Artaxerxes III. It's very similar to, this relief is very similar to the ones we'll see at Nakshi Rustam, which is actually, I don't know, 5-6 kilometers away. Let's see what we can see inside. You can see the bull capitals at the top. This is where the bones of Artaxerxes would have been laid to rest. Inside, can't really go inside. There you see the great king, or in a relief of the great king, the Shahin Shah. Let's see where else we can go.
Yo la semana pasada estuve en un castillo, que medio castillo está allí, en el Metropolitan de Nueva York.
شمال ایران 500 سال اسلام نیاورد.
تا دهنشه.
This is actually a well. It's a well. So you can see how far down it goes. More or less dry. Can't really see anything. The farther I put the camera down, the less you can see, but just know this is a well. Now let's admire this view. I'm gonna stop to take a few pictures from here. We were all the way up there just now. The tomb of Artaxerxes III, looking down upon what was once his city, built by his great ancestor, Darius the Great. could walk around this way, but let's go from here. We can cut through. This is very famous. This is the famous Treasury relief. Take a photo. My mistake, this is closed off actually. I think at one time you were able to go up over there, but it's been over 20 years since I've been here. First trip, so I guess they have closed this off. This little bookshop. I have to go up this way. Let's see how quickly we can do it. Let's go up there. We gotta go up this hill. The view from there is great. Again, it's the city. Today, but it's all worth it. continue. Eyes on the prize. Quite random. We'll stop for our pictures on the way back. Not bad. I think we've been at this for about 2 hours, and I'm guessing it's about 95 degrees. I'm wearing jeans because you can't wear shorts here. And look at that, I have the place to myself. Haven't had any water, quite impressed. I'm just so taken by this place that any physical needs I have right now, don't even think about them. But look at that. All right, let's take a look. And we cannot walk up, but we have a good glimpse from here. Also. It's so quiet and peaceful here. So this might be a good place for us to stop. Hope you've enjoyed this. I definitely have. Much better than the first time I remember it. Of course, I was really young at that time. All right, this is Sai signing off. You'll definitely see a lot of this footage in future videos, and I'll be explaining more, what we've been seeing on the channel. But hope wherever you are, you're doing well. Thank you for watching. Also, thank you to the channel's patrons. And yeah, I will see you soon. Take care, everyone.
So I hope that you've enjoyed this journey back in time, and I thank you so much for watching. I'd also really like to thank Faria Faraji for providing the amazing music heard throughout the first part of this program, as well as the channel's patrons, among those being GrandKek69, Yap de Graaf, Pasta Frola, Michael Lewis, Daniel Allen, Wenix TV, Robert Morgan, Frank, Tim Lane, Sebastian Hurtado Correa, Michael Trudell, Leader Titan, Micah G, John Scarberry, Andrew Bomer, Monty Grimes, Franz Robbins, Brendan Redman, Cyrus Smear, Faridun Dadachanji, Jimmy Daruwala, Anahita Debu, Gulistan Debu, Sher Kam, Farhad Kama, and all of the channel's patrons on Patreon for supporting this and all future content. Check out the benefits to being a Patreon member, and if you'd like to join, feel free to click the link in the video description. You can also follow History with Sai on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, as well as continue to listen to special audio programs on the History with Sai podcast. Thanks again, and stay safe.
Library here. There's a library here. There's a library. Looks like it's closed. Oh, I'd love to go in there. What I wouldn't give to go into that library right now. Persepolis Museum. It's a whole other thing. It's amazing inside.